Thanks for the question about the collaborative. It's a brand new nonprofit being launched statewide, and the mission really is to interrupt intergenerational patterns of trauma and adverse experiences, so that we can start to get equitable, positive outcomes in both health and education. So, as we know, we have those who have been historically and contemporarily marginalized, and we continue to get disparate outcomes in both healthcare and education. And no matter how amazing our programs are and how much money we put into the issue and how many great people we have working on it, those gaps just keep getting wider. And so what we know is that we need systems level change. And this nonprofit is going to co-imagine in a community-based, culturally responsive way, basically a new way for healthcare and education systems to interface with each other, so that we can begin to get different outcomes. So, for example, there's an organization in Southern Oregon right now called Southern Oregon Success that's doing this work. They're the type of community effort that we're looking to fund with grant monies. And what they've done is brought together human services, child care providers, K-12, the Education Services District, CCOs, which provide Medicaid healthcare, and they're coming together and figuring out how can they work together, network, partner, collaborate, so that people don't fall through the gaps. And the last thing I'll say, and then I can pause so I don't just fire hose you with words, is that the first initiative of the Oregon Health and Education Collaborative is to focus on the first 1,000 days of a human's life, because what we know is that that is a critical time for human development, much like the adolescent period. But if we're going to change patterns that are basically epigenetically passed down from generation to generation, then we're going to need to interrupt that in that first 1,000 days of a human's life. So we're looking to fund 4 projects. We're going to be issuing an RFP in about 6 weeks, and we're going to be raising a bunch of money to give these communities. And ultimately, the goal is to co-imagine a blueprint for a child success model and take it to the legislature and see what we can do to remove barriers or introduce legislation and budgetary items so that Oregon can start to see good outcomes, regardless of zip code, race, linguistic background, ethnicity, socioeconomic class. Did I explain it all right? Did that come across clear? Yeah.
Did you have a website up and running for this? We were looking and I didn't see one for this specifically.
Yeah, great question. Because everything is so new, you'll be one of the first people to visit the website. It's not the official website, but there is information at OregonCollaborative.org. So OregonCollaborative.org, you can go there. There's several links. One will take you to a PDF that describes this first 1,000 days upstream initiative. And then there's also a PDF that describes the amazing board of 13 leaders from across the state who are the visionaries for this effort. And then you can also, of course, donate and sign up for our email listserv. I think those are the main things you can do there. Yeah.
Nice, good to see. I threw it in the chat. I was trying it with a secure HTTPS, and that did not come up. It'll get there.
Chelsea, are your the initial groups you're looking for, are you looking for groups in different parts of the state, or you're not going to be that selective? Are you just looking for good groups, whoever's doing the work?
That is such an important question. We really are being quite intentional about looking for diverse communities from across the state. We, of course, ideally would like to be representative of things like the coastal range, rural Eastern Oregon, perhaps another one in Southern Oregon, or perhaps like the Bend, Lapine area, something perhaps in the Tri-Counties area. But we do want to find models across the state, because we know it's going to look different in Multnomah County or Clackamas County than it's going to look in Coos or Curry County. And we really want to honor that, particularly as we think about scaling a model statewide. The RFP is really cool too. We're working on it right now. And the thing I'm loving, I was told that you talked already a little bit about ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, and that research was so profound. It's been around for 20, 25 years. It was really revolutionary when it came out. I remember taking the test and thinking, oh goodness, I have a very high ACE score. Like, what does this mean? The thing that's really cool that we're working into this RFP is new research that's coming out called Healthy Outcomes from Positive Experiences. The acronym is HOPE. And what the research is showing us is that, yes, trauma and negative experiences impact the brain, and it generates worse outcomes later in life. We also know that positive experiences early in childhood is a mitigating factor. It shifts the social determinants of health. So things like if these young children have a positive relationship with a stable adult, if they have a healthy community around them, the whole ecology of human development, if they're taught healthy social and emotional skills, which our schools are really being charged with doing lately and being attacked for doing so. If these positive experiences are in place, then we can more likely mitigate the ACEs. And so we're building that into the RFP is one of the factors that we're looking for, is who is not replicating old systems, who's coming up with a new way of being, a new way of doing things, one of which will include building community in a way that generates these positive experiences.
It is so exciting to hear you talk about this and to be part of this conversation, because if this isn't exactly what we need, I don't know what is. And to think that you're a driving force here, Chelsea, and it's just, I'm so glad I met you.
I love talking about how we met, and just that kind of surprise door.
That was very funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a goodie.
Chelsea came to my door. I was the last stop on her door knocking campaign, and I opened the door, and she said, "My name is Chelsea King. You probably don't know who I am." I said, "I know exactly who you are." And partly it was because I had read her wonderful essays in the Oregon Humanities Magazine a couple of years earlier, and I was very familiar with her name, and it was like, oh my goodness. And pretty soon she was in the house and we were talking, and it was just great. And then she came to my book launch, and everything was like fell into place. Have anything more you want to say about that, Chelsea?
Well, just I think what comes up for me when I listen to you talk about that is the gift of community. And that Senate run widened my community, and one of which is getting closer to Carol. Fran volunteered and came out. I got to see Fran more often, and meeting you, Salima. And I think that's one of the things that's coming up right now is we are fairly isolated. We are definitely polarized. We are suspicious and fearful, and generations of trauma are affecting us as humans, and it's rearing its head in our communities. And on our freeways and in our homes. And
Right.
so, we need to come together and across difference and know each other and be connected. So knocking on doors was definitely one way to do that. You start to see that people, we're a lot more similar, and people aren't so scary.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was an interesting experience for sure.
How was that for you, Fran? I didn't get to hear a whole lot of your stories.
Mostly nobody was home. But the few people that I did get to talk to who were really positive about you, it was a really great conversation. And the people who didn't know you were quite interested in learning more. And so I did really enjoy doing that job.
Yeah. Yeah. And you all know Fran's a retired educator. Yeah. Did you get that far in your
Yes.
conversation?
Yep.
Yeah.
What did you teach, Fran?
I taught primarily third and fourth grade, and then I became what they called English learner support teacher. So what happened was I was in charge of all the English learners at 2 schools
Oh, wow.
in San Diego. And that means that I was sitting behind a computer a lot of the time, putting the data in from their test scores and doing the testing. Once in a while, I got to teach.
Mhm. Chelsea, I don't think you know Robin, but she is also a retired teacher, and she taught in Irvine, California. So,
Very
and-
good.
and yeah, and
Just up the road.
Just up the road from you, yeah. Yeah, I had a very varied experience, but I was a special ed teacher my whole career. It started with severely and profoundly retarded kids at an isolated school, moving up to an elementary school where I completely integrated my special ed kids with general ed kids, and then became a resource teacher and moved up to high school. So lots of different experiences. And that the one thing that is flashing in my head now, what you're doing is so amazing, but because I worked with so many kids that had so many issues and families with issues, that I love that you're starting the first 1,000 days, but I worry about the kids that are already in school now that are first and second graders that are suffering trauma, families with no funding, families with no community, houseless possibly. And it's like you want to do everything all at once, and I know that you can't, so you're starting from a really great place to start, but my heart still hurts for those kids that are going to continue through the system with not enough money, not enough support. Even like you said, keep throwing money at things, and that's not going to change it. I look moving here from California, where I was in a district that was, 99% of the kids graduated from high school, coming here to Oregon, where the graduation level is so low. And then, they talk about lowering the standards for kids because of COVID, that they don't have the same expectation as they're going to go out into the world that they used to have. That all concerns me, but you can't take care of everything at once, I know.
Talking about generational trauma, after I retired, I substituted for a couple of years before I moved up here. And this principal called me one day and she said, I want you to come here. This teacher is very, very sick and we're not sure when she's going to come back. This was like just before Thanksgiving. And she said, you'll probably be here till after the first of the year. Okay. So I go into the classroom and it's a total disaster. There's stuff everywhere. It's just an incredible mess. And then I finally find the roster and I look at the names, and they were the children of a bunch of kids that I had, and it was the worst year of my teaching.
Oh my God.
And so, it was really clear to me in that moment, here we go.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying, Robin. It's definitely a conversation that my board has had. There are 5 superintendents, K-12 superintendents on the board. And so it's discussion. What's the pros and cons of looking at the K-12, realm versus the first 1,000 days? And I think you're saying something important when you say we need to focus somewhere, right? Some of these organizations, they do birth to adults. And so, if we focus on the first 1,000 days, there's also some good research you'll see on the one pager, the PDF, I should call it, on the OregonCollaborative.org. It's called Heckman's Curve. And Heckman, I see some nodding. Yeah, he's done some good research on, like, basically he puts the human development thing into an economic framework, which will be helpful when we go to the legislature, I'm sure. But the idea of if we can focus on that first 1,000 days, we'll get a better return on our investment. So that's kind of another rationale. But here's the thing that I know to be true that motivates me to focus on the first 1,000 days is that in order to reach that, the fetus inside the pregnant mom, or the newborn, or the 1-year-old, or the 2-year-old, you're going to have to reach those caregivers and those adults. And so just by the nature of focusing in there, we will be taking that whole picture and grabbing, any siblings and trying to stabilize that family and, essentially interrupt that pattern that Fran just described from looking at her class list from one generation to the next.
I think too that we, before COVID, at least had our eye on kids once they hit the school system. But it's kind of new for us to pay much attention to children before they hit preschool or kindergarten. And we don't have any benchmarks. Pediatricians do it, but not much of anyone else. And so this is a new innovation to think about that part of life, I think. And as you're saying, Chelsea, it's so important.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know Dr. Lisa Reynolds. She's a state representative. You know her, Carol. Yeah. She talks about this too, that she'll have these parents come in with their infants, and she can tell that there's a need with the parents. Whatever she's observing, she thinks the need is, if it's housing or, recovery services or something's going on, but there's not much that she can do. She's there to treat the baby and then send them out the door. And it's sort of a symptom of our fragmented state of affairs. And so part of what this effort is to get folks and really who are our providers in community with each other so that they can help that parent by reaching out to someone else who might do workforce development or housing stability. Right now, we might have a social worker embedded in a pediatrician office, but we don't have an extensive network. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is build that network and that partnership.
Well, the federal law does require for special ed kids, if they have like speech and language issues, that they can get services started at 18 months. Kind of not as far back as you're going, but at least some intervention. But what's amazed me living up here is the number of people that don't even know anything about that. And the preschools don't know anything. And the primary care physicians, pediatricians aren't telling them. I've had 3 families in my own neighborhood that, because I did it for so long, when the kids are really little, I hear things in their speech that I know are something that probably needs to be addressed. And now the kids are, functioning, their language skills developed because they had that early intervention. So it is really critical to get to kids at the time when, like you're talking about, but before they're 3, so that you can help take care of issues that then don't become this gigantic gap as they get older.
Yeah, that's right. It's something I struggle with too. Like, I was at a volleyball tournament. This is my life now. I spend very long days at volleyball tournaments, and there was a mom there, and I was observing her, and she was on her phone, and her maybe 2 or 3-year-old was strapped into the stroller and was doing a lot of grunting to communicate. Pointing and pointing at the chips the mom was eating, pointing at the ball, and the mom was looking at the phone and eating the chips. And I wanted to like just do something like, can I play with your kid? Or, oh, would you let, but because of the way I think, I don't know, something about our culture, I just thought that's not my place and I don't want to offend the mom. And, so it's one of the things I stay curious about is how do we engage with one another in a way that's more connected and less separate.
Mhm.
I go back to Hillary Clinton's It Takes a Village.
Yep. Well, in developing your program in a way, or the programs that you're sponsoring, so that the families that you're supporting see it as support instead of someone trying to come in and tell them how to parent or something like that, so that it's a welcomed coming in. That's a tricky little piece there too.
Yeah, that's right. That having it be a positive experience, right? A place that's actually based on pleasure and openness and playfulness and creativity, rather than running the risk of sort of re-traumatizing folks when they come into our systems, which is something we're kind of at jeopardy of doing right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll take some reimagining, right? Some reimagining and some
Reimagining,
co-imagining.
Reimagining the approach, just the approach makes all the difference. I mean, we know that not only in young families, but everywhere.
Yeah.
What are some things that we can do to help?
Thank you for that question. So, sign up for the email list. That would be fun. That way you can stay in touch with things. And when we release our RFP, if you know people who work in a nonprofit or in a school system or a healthcare system, share it with them. Those things are great. Obviously donating money is always good, even if it's $25, $50, something like that will just help us to fund these. And I think just keep doing what you're doing. Like each of you in your own sphere are building community and connecting people and spreading the love, and just keep doing that. That's the best thing you can do.
Maybe you can use granny ambassadors. I mean, what is more supportive than here's a granny who's going to come to your house? And
there's a community in Southern Oregon who's working with that Southern Oregon Success called Grandmas to Go. And that's what they do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would volunteer for that since I don't have any grandchildren.
But we might have to talk about that in a Raging Grannies meeting, because we don't just rage, I mean, we could very well have a contingent of grannies to go.
There was an elderly woman who worked at my school as a volunteer. She just walked into the office one day and said, I'd like to read to children. Who can I read with? And boy, that just exploded. And she was busy for the rest of her life there.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
I'll need to retire first.
What?
I'll
need to retire first. I already want to. It's like, wait, when am I going to fit that in? Yeah. Go listen to me.
Oh.
Retire and then you get really busy.
Exactly. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Chelsea, do you need to get back to the game?
Yeah, there was a break and now they're in the championship.
Oh,
and so
okay.
You gotta go.
Yeah, and I don't know when. I don't think I'm missing it yet, but I can feel that I need to walk back in soon and witness what I anticipate will be a victory.
Yes. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we are so glad that we had you with us for this time. And maybe we'll do
Yeah.
it again as things move forward. Maybe we'll do it again in some months from now.
Yeah, thanks for being understanding. Just for what it's worth, did I say this already? I called the hospital where my mom was taken in, and she's conscious and she's okay, and they're running tests. But everything kind of culminated right there at 4 o'clock with the messages
Boy.
from my sister and the daughter playing volleyball. And so, yeah, I appreciate your flexibility and just for being here and being you.
Well,
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Chelsea.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
Oh,
you and
Okay.
helping us draw the circle wider and wider all the time.
Yeah. All right. Take care. I'll see you all. See you all soon.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mhm. Wow. Oh,
Well, I'm going to
Cool.
head out too, folks. It was really good meeting you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
yeah, we hope so. And so if you want to review this, we are going to post it on the website. Do you want to put that in the chat, Steph, the address? And then probably next week, about Wednesday or so, we'll get it up and posted. And you might want to.
Okay.
I know
All right.
I will. I will definitely want to review because I hear things the second time better than I do the first. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you. That was
Great.
Nice to meet you.
very
for
good.
having us.
Nice to meet you
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thank you all.
You all.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Bye.